Hello and welcome to episode 131 of The Pitcher or the Hitter, the podcast by the M-SABR Dynasty League for the M-SABR Dynasty League. I am Cam,
I'm Sahil.
and it was a very interesting deadline. A lot of big moves were made. A lot of big moves nearly were made and were not made. And in the end, you were both entering the trade deadline and leaving the trade deadline with two different 12-0 wins.
Yes, beat Conor last week 12-0, and then was a little bummed when this week started because I was like, oh shit, I'm not going to put up a week as good as this one. And then proceeded to top that week, like by a lot. I think we were talking about this off air. I think this might be the best offensive week in league history.
I think it's kind of undeniable at this point. Like you broke the RBI record. You had a top tier on base percentage. You nearly hit 70 or scored 70 runs.
I still can.
This is
We are recording on Sunday. It is the top of the seventh inning in that Braves Mets game. So I still have Alonso and Alves. It's still possible.
yeah, no, this in 20 doubles. This was looking like on Tuesday or something that it could be a pitcher or the hitter matchup. And indeed, Andrew was weirdly close to having it be that. He was really close in all six pitching categories. We're gonna talk about this later.
Yeah.
We've got time set aside for this matchup. Why not go into the trade deadline? How do you feel how this went for your team and for the league as a whole?
Yeah, I was happy to see that there was kind of this rush of trades on the last day. I think you and I on air predicted like 7 to 8 trades in between when we had last recorded and the end of the deadline, and we definitely topped that number. I think there was one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight. There's nine trades. So I I thought it was a pretty solid deadline. There's definitely some smaller moves, but there's also some bigger unexpected moves. The three-team trade, which we talked about on the last podcast, was one of the big ones. But also, I mean, just on deadline day, I mean, there's some pretty big names that got moved around as well. So, um, do we want to dive right into the first one?
Yeah, let's dive in here. The first trade made after we talked.
Was my deal. So Mount Rushmore agreed to trade Carlos Correa, Gavin Lux, Jeffrey Springs, Jared Jones, and a conditional pick to off White Sox for Marcus Semien. If both Lux and Springs don't play in the 2024 season, I'll send my next available first to Conor. And if one of them doesn't play in the 2024 season, I'll send my next available second and third in 2025 to 2026 to Conor.
Yeah, I feel like you have a lot of deals with Conor where it's like, hey, this guy's probably out for the year, but in case he's not, we'll throw in this condition. Um, I think it's an interesting deal. Correa's really struggled this year. He's been dealing with some injuries and just kind of not been playing super effectively. So Semien's a great get. But I don't know. Personally, I don't trust him. He's kind of been up and down. I also traded for him. He sucked and then traded him away and he was good again. So I'm not fully sure that I don't know that I trust him, but I think in general, um, he's an interesting guy to get. Lux maybe feels like you're giving up on a little early. That could bite you. And Springs, yeah, hasn't been healthy. Yeah, Lux either. It's an interesting deal, but that's kind of what the where those conditional picks are coming from. It's tough. Objectively, it's an okay price for Semien, but I have a hard time trusting him.
Yeah, so I disagree with your distrust on Semien. So I know last year he went until like mid-May without getting a home run. But then after that, he was just awesome last year. And I think you see some of the numbers maybe depressed a little bit because of that, particularly in the OBP department. But he still finished last year with a 26 homer, 25 stolen base, 101 run, 83 RBI season. Year before that, he was fantastic with Toronto. He played 162 games. He played 161 last year. And then in 2019, he played 162 games with a 138 WRC plus. He's got a 124 WRC plus this year. He's played in every single game. I mean, dude just plays every day. He puts up solid numbers. He's the number one second baseman or primary second baseman on the player rater. Mookie's ahead of him on the player rater, but Mookie's not a primary second baseman. I actually now have the top 3 second base eligible players in the player rater. So well, I've never fully, been a Semien guy always. I mean, you've definitely heard over the years how I've kind of been on and off with him. I just think he's a pretty steady producer who's going to play every day, and he bats atop a Rangers lineup that's arguably the best lineup in the American League. So I am very happy with this move. With Correa kind of reminds me of what I did with Ketel Marte last offseason, where I was like, hey, you're a talented player. I'm just kind of done riding this rodeo. And it's just, he's had his moments, but he also had some inconsistencies with the performance and the injuries. He's not really a base stealer. He has the leg issue that caused a couple teams to back out from signing him, the Giants and the Mets. So it's one of those things where it just felt like time. Lux and Springs, I mean, neither of them are going to contribute this year. And, as a win now team, it makes it made some sense for me to give them up. I do agree with you about Lux. I mean, I acquired Lux in the off season, and and I mean, you all can go back and listen to that episode. All the reasons that I like Lux back then are reasons I liked him now, which is also a reason why I reacquired Lux from EBO a few months ago after he got hurt. But this just kind of ended up being the cost for upgrading in my middle infield. Springs, like, low key is older than you would think he is. He's going to be 31, 32 by the time he comes back from TJ. Like, yes, he's shown some strong performances, but also doesn't have a consistent track record of being healthy as a starting pitcher and performing well. He has the half season last year of starting, I guess 25 starts, but that's it. So I was okay giving him up here. And then Jared Jones, Fangraph's top 100 prospect, but not really anybody like crying over having traded. And I think Conor did a good job here of securing the conditions because I mean, you never know how things go with these injuries. It's nice to have a little bit of a backup. I feel pretty comfortable that I won't have to send the first round pick, like Lux with the torn ACL. I mean, they're talking maybe even he could contribute in the playoffs if it came down to that, or I think at the very least he'll start next season healthy. And Springs had TJ early enough in the season and where I think he'll be back sometime in the middle of next year. So I felt pretty good about this, and it honestly did not feel like a ton for me to give up for Semien, considering what I kind of expected would need to happen. I thought I was going to have to come back and offer some more players, so I'm very happy with this move.
Yeah, the thing and I hadn't considered this, but you're just really trading for all of the second basemen, and I'm not sure why. Like, it's not a need. It's less of a need than really any team has at any position. And yet here you are acquiring all of the second basemen. I don't know. It's like if Andrew traded for another top tier catcher.
It's just kind of worked out that the available players that I think are like premier talents to put in my lineup, have just been second base eligible. I mean, I now have 6 second base eligible players, but half of them play another position as well. So, I'm not starting Mookie in any of my second base spots. He's starting in my outfield. Muncy is third base eligible. Westberg's third base eligible. So It just kind of worked out this way, but hey, this also maybe means that I have some capacity to unload one or two of them in the off season. So yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. And let's move on then. The next trade was a surprising one, one that a lot of us had strong opinions about. This was the first deadline day deal of seven, and we can speed through these because most of these aren't that interesting.
Yeah.
But this one is interesting. Conor traded Justin Verlander and Trevor Story to Erik for Dylan Cease and Logan Allen. Yeah, I think this is kind of a win-win. Conor got a great return for Justin Verlander, a guy when he's not going to make the playoffs this year. Really solid return. Whereas Erik gets another ace and a decent infielder.
Yeah, I think this is a win, bigger win, is I think how I described it in the Dynasty Baseball chat. Like, yeah, I know that I'm not a big Dylan Cease guy, and I know that he hasn't looked quite as good as he did last year, but he's still only 27, coming off a season with a 2.20 ERA. And he's running a little bit of a high BABIP, which I think is kind of contributing to, some of the contributing to the higher ERA this year. But I think he's a really good return on top of Logan Allen, who, has cracked some top 100 lists. I think he's a pretty solid young pitcher for Conor to gamble on. He's got a 3.55 ERA and 17 starts this year for Cleveland, and with some of their injuries and them trading Savali, like I think he should be getting some full run in that rotation. Verlander, like you said, he's 40, right? Like I think he's an upgraded receiver this year for Erik, but I think that Erik is definitely going to lose out in the long term. With the starting pitcher comparison there. Trevor Story, I mean, just hasn't had a really good season since like 2019. I think if we pull it up right here, 122 WRC plus in 19, 59 games in 2020 at a 117. Okay, that's pretty solid. But like 2021, he had a 98. Last year, he had a 100 WRC plus, and I mean, he's only had 16 plate appearances this year. I'm just not convinced that he's going to bounce back and be the Trevor Story of old, especially because he's not in Colorado anymore. Erik did have a second base need. This is probably a little bit of an upgrade over what he has been running out there so far. And while I'm not a Story fan, I do get the gamble, right? Like Erik needs better second base production, and if Story can bounce back, then Erik solved that hole. But I don't know. I know he did want Semien. I know that he did mention at like, hey, Semien for Cease, like some sort of deal around those two players was something he wanted to offer Conor. And he thought that Conor was going to give him, like, I guess, some more time to maybe come up with an offer before Conor ended up taking my offer in the middle of the hockey draft last week. So that's just how it goes.
Yeah. Yeah, like you said, it's a win slash bigger win deal. I'm not like the biggest fan of Trevor Story. And he's kind of been a little rough since he got to Boston, but I think he's fine get for Erik. The second base field is really thin since you're just kind of taking all the good ones. And speaking of getting a second baseman, the next trade was me. I acquired Ryan McMahon and Connor Phillips for Jarren Duran and Marco Raya. McMahon's the 11th ranked second baseman right now, so I think he's a fine back of the lineup guy. I've always liked him. I like his StatCast numbers. I like the fact that he plays at Coors. I think he hits the ball really hard and in a good ballpark. He's definitely a big doubles guy. Gets on base at a fine amount. I think him and Duran are probably fairly even. Duran's younger, but I also think Duran's kind of a fraud. He's running a 380 BABIP, so I do not expect him to continue to hit like this, even though the steals are kind of nice. And I don't know. I think I like McMahon a little better anyway. And even if it is more even, I think I got a really substantial pitching prospect upgrade, which I felt happy with, and made me more confident shopping Ricky Tiedemann and Jacob Mizorowski in deals, even though those never really came to pass.
Yeah, I'm not really a huge McMahon guy or a huge Duran guy. I think I like Duran slightly better. I mean, McMahon has a 100 WRC plus this season, and I get it's not a WRC plus league, but it's the first time he's had a positive WRC plus, or at least a league average WRC plus, and it comes with a 30.3% K rate. He's running a 332 BABIP, which would be a career high, and I wonder if that is slightly maybe boosting the OBP numbers artificially. So I'm not as big as fan, although I do share the BABIP concerns with Jarren Duran as well. Although I do think you can maybe argue he's made some substantive changes this year that maybe give you a little more hope that, hey, this is sustainable. I do think you upgrade on the pitching prospect end from Phillips or moving up from Raya to Phillips, but I don't think it's as big of a gap as you think. I mean, overall, I think this is kind of a meh for meh trade. Like, I'm fine with it. Like, it's relatively even. It's more of a personal preference for which side, but like, none of these players really excite me.
Yeah, I think that's fair. It's a small trade. Um, I'm hoping to get a little bit of power down the stretch, basically, because my team has really been lacking in that department the last month or so.
Yeah, I think that's very fair. I do think, yeah, for a team that needs more power, I do think he is a better fit than Duran McMahon is.
But moving on to the next one, let's kind of rapid fire through. How about this? There's one more interesting one, and then do you want to, or two more interesting ones, and then do you want to do those and then rapid fire through the other three?
Yeah, let's do
All
that.
right. So you got Josh Hader. You gave up a decent amount. I like Carlos Jorge a lot. Um, talk about Josh Hader.
Yeah, Josh Hader has not given up a run since May 30th. He has been, I mean, arguably just taking it as a whole, probably like the top fantasy closer like since we started the league. Um, and I know that he had a little bit of a struggle when he got to San Diego last year. I mean, I know he was dealing with his wife was having pregnancy issues, moving to a new team, all of that, but he's righted the ship. He's looked really good again. And I needed to replace Alexis Diaz after I traded him to get Albies. I, thought at first I'd kind of go with some internal replacements with just like some holds guys. I traded for Minter as part of that Albies deal, maybe picking some guys up. And ultimately, I was just like, you know what? Like, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this right. Let me go out and get another premium guy. I usually do not like trading for relievers, but Hader is like one of the few exceptions. I just view him as that elite talent, and he's still somehow only 29. I like Joey Ortiz a lot. He's been having a great year in AAA and has spent a little bit of time in the majors for the Orioles this year, but they just simply have no room in the infield for him. I'd honestly be a little surprised if he's still with the Orioles come next season. I think he'll be a decent infield starter for any team that acquires him. But I think the fantasy upside is lacking a little bit. Robbie Snelling is a guy who's kind of risen up prospect list. He's now in the top 50 in Baseball America's list. 19-year-old in high A, having a very nice season, but I mean, he's still a 19-year-old pitching prospect, so I viewed him as expendable. And Carlos Jorge, I mean, I like him too. I've held on to him for a while. I know you and I kind of on and off discussed a deal where I'd send you Carlos Jorge and something else to get you Darvish. Ultimately, I mean, again, he's a 19-year-old who actually looks like he just got promoted to high A. And there's still a lot of risk, and neither of these guys were going to help me this year. Conor got his 2024 second back in the deal as well. Could you argue that it was maybe a little rich in terms of the prospects that I gave up? Sure, but I wanted to be aggressive. seeing that, I think this is a really prime year for me to be able to win. And I mean, I think these back-to-back 12-0 weeks are kind of showing like, hey, like my team is here, they're ready, and let's go at it and try and win a championship. So that was my feeling on making this trade.
Yeah, I think it's a solid win-win. You've really cycled through a lot of closures the past 2 years, and I guess I know there's a strategy behind it, but it still definitely takes a toll. And having a guy like Hader lock your team down for a while, and maybe you don't stick with him for a while. Knowing you probably won't, but he seems like a really steady guy to have at the back of your bullpen. And as for Conor, he got a really great return.
Yeah.
For Josh Hader. So yeah, I like it a lot for Conor, but I also think it's a good move for your team.
No, I think so too. And I think he really needed to reload the farm system that had gotten a bit stale with a little bit of his inactivity. I mean, not his fault. I know he's been busy, but I think he's been able to bring in some solid pieces over these trades to really raise the ceiling of that farm system. And speaking of that, he made one more big trade that I don't know about you. I think this is by far the most surprising deal of the trade deadline, and I'm still trying to make sense of it.
I'm not sure most surprising. I think you're saying that because you hear about every other trade that ever happens except for this one. I think Cease moving was way more surprising than Goldschmidt moving.
See, I had an idea, if not in that deal, that like it sounded like Erik's been shopping Cease for a little while, but so I'm not totally surprised. I think what surprises me here is not that Conor traded Goldschmidt, it is who he traded Goldschmidt to. So the full trade was Conor traded Paul Goldschmidt and outfield prospect Gavin Cross to EBO for Cole Young and Chase Petty. Paul Goldschmidt is 36, 30. He's 35. He turns 36 next month. And EBO is still a rebuilding team, and they just traded for a 36-year-old first baseman. You can't tell me that's not surprising.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's a little surprising. I'm not sure. Yeah, what it is they want to do with Goldschmidt. Maybe hold on to him down the stretch for a little while, then see if they can flip him for something a little better. But I agree, doesn't make a whole lot of sense for their timeline.
I also think so. I wonder if it's one of those situations where, Zane's just kind of asking around on everybody. He's been active in the trade market. He's been like, hey, Goldschmidt was our first round pick. It'd be a little bit of fun to like have him back on the roster. Like they have a bunch of young guys. If he thinks, hey, just I don't know. He was just like, all right, like what's the price on Goldschmidt? Why not? And I wonder if he just saw that price because I really don't think he gave up a lot to go get him and was like, oh shit, like let's pull the trigger on this. Yeah, he doesn't fit our timeline, but like you said, either they flip him later or they're like, this is the one veteran that we're just going to keep like throughout this process and just kind of ride it out. Because like I don't think they gave up a lot to get him. I mean, I think Cole Young, you can argue, is the best prospect in the deal, but I think Gavin Cross is right below him, and then I'd have Petty last on that prospect list. Like this was kind of a nothing return. This is the only trade Conor made that I didn't like for Conor.
Yeah, I agree. I like Cole Young. I think he's fine. I'm not like going to go to bat for Cole Young, but I think he's a fine prospect. Chase Petty the same. He's solid, but there are a few Reds pitching prospects ahead of him. He's the second best Reds pitching prospect who was moved at this deadline. To be fair, I don't really care much for Gavin Cross either. I didn't like him before the draft. I got a little grief for passing on him.
I guess he's having a worse season than I thought. I was big on Gavin Cross going into the draft, and I guess he hasn't performed as well. But even then, like I would have expected like Cole Young and like another really premium prospect to be the Goldschmidt price. Because it's not like Goldschmidt's having a bad year. I get the age, but it's not like he's having a bad year, and it's not like he's slipping or anything in terms of production. Okay, he's slipping compared to the otherworldly 177 WRC plus he put up last year, but he still has a 123 WRC plus this year with 18 home runs and 9 steals. Like he's still having a very good season.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe Conor was desperate to sell. We'll never we'll never know unless we ask him.
I also don't
Uh
know what the other offers were. I mean, it's possible nobody made an offer on him. Like I thought about trying to trade for Goldschmidt, but I was like, he's 3 years older than Semien, and I'm like, I'd rather just go for Semien. He's having a little bit of a better year. Um, I don't know who else really needs a first baseman who's like a contender. Like you have Vlad and Bohm and Yandy Diaz. I have Freeman and Alonso. Erik has Christian Walker. Jake has Matt Olson. Andrew has Nate Lowe. Like none of those teams need Goldschmidt.
exactly. Yeah, and maybe this was a scenario where Conor could have waited till the offseason to sell him, but either way, EBO gets reunited with one of their old favorites.
Yes, that is on the third green square on the 2018 draft sheet. So that in the first round of the 2018 draft sheet. Um, so that's a lot of fun.
Yeah, we really are just kind of trading the same players back and forth. Surprised there wasn't another Matt Chapman deal at the deadline.
Oh God, I really wonder if EBO had just exactly zero interest for him. Like I'm not sure what happened there. Like you would think that like somebody would have wanted him. I don't know. Let's get into that in a second because there's a couple almost deals that I think are worth talking about. But like
Let's rapid fire through the three remaining
yeah.
deals. Orlando Arcia for a third. Probably a fine price. I don't care for Arcia, but a third's not a lot. What do you think?
Yeah, same. Although it was kind of weird to me that Daniel and Matt were the ones who traded for him.
Yeah, they're kind of loaded with picks at the moment. I think they think he's a fine guy to gamble on.
RC is also 29 and he's kind of kept it up. So yeah, who knows?
Yeah. Up next, Rainer Arias in a second for Alex Cobb. Any thoughts?
I think it's a win-win. I think gives Ruthvik a little more pitching depth, like a back end rotation arm. And I think Cobb's like 35. I think Daniel and Mac clearly that was like their one biggest clear like trade chip. He'll be 36 in October. Like, I thought it was a fine price for both sides. Cobb's low key having a pretty solid season. So
Yeah, I agree. Arias is I maybe would have paid slightly more for Cobb. But I also think Arias is a decent get. Super young, tearing up rookie ball.
yeah.
Last trade, JP France for Griff McGarry and a third. I don't care either way.
Yeah, I don't really care. Like I think France is one of those. He's running a little hot right now, so Anthony probably sold high, but like I just don't care. I don't care. Like I don't think McGarry's really any good. I bet you that third round pick is probably the most valuable part of that trade when it's all said and done.
Yeah, that reminds me of a hot take I had in the spreadsheet about a third rounder being the best, or about a late pick. Let's see. Yeah, the 2023 second rounder ends up being the most valuable asset in Zane and Jake's Baez trade from 12 to 21. Let's while I'm thinking about it, let's
Let's go back and review it.
Baez, let's see.
The 12-2. Okay, so Carlos Rodon, Jordan Walker, Kirby Yates, Javi Baez, Mike Clevenger, Josh Mears, and a second round pick. Was that trade?
Let's
12-2-21.
12-2-21. Yes, that was the trade. Yeah, I think Jordan Walker kind of broke out shortly after this. And Rodon's solid. I think, yeah, that's probably not going to age perfectly well, but I think I was on the right track about Baez sucking and Joshua Mears being a nobody. But yeah, Walker really broke out shortly after this.
Clevenger hasn't been much of anything.
Hey, I streamed Clevenger to much success earlier this year, but yeah, I agree. He's not a guy who's going to stick on a roster
Yeah,
until you're going to pick him up and trade him for a second rounder this offseason. I'll bet $10 that happens.
sounds like me. I mean, like Kirby Yates isn't much of anything either. And honestly, Rodon has arguably had negative value this year. He's either been hurt or pitching like shit. Like it's really Jordan Walker.
It's really if Jordan Walker busts, that second rounder ended up going to me and ended up being Jet Williams. So if Jet Williams has a better career than Jordan Walker, then I'm right.
My money's on no, but like I like Jet.
No, I agree.
Yeah, I'm a Jet guy.
Wish I knew that at the trade deadline.
Yeah, you should offer me Jet. I was waiting to make some trades or prospects and stuff. Speaking of other trades, I mean, Zane just mentioned in the chat today that he went to sleep before seeing that Steven Matz for 2027 third was offered. Like, I think that would have been a good deal for him and whoever went out and acquired him. There's some other big names that kind of got floated around. Julio Rodriguez was floated around in some talks before the deadline. I'll let you talk about your offer, but first, J-Rod, there was a consideration for a deal that was basically like J-Rod and Ha-Seong Kim for Bobby Witt Jr. and Josh Jung. That's an interesting one. Like Witt had like a pretty garbage OBP for his first year and a half, but he's been really solid since June in that department. And he's got like 21 homers, 34 steals this year. I think Josh Jung's a really good player. I think he's going to be a stud third baseman. But I mean, obviously, J-Rod was the AL Rookie of the Year last year, and Ha-Seong Kim's having a breakout season this year. So, boy, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I think Alex was right not to accept that offer. Probably.
Yeah.
I was shocked that there were other offers out there for Julio. I was shocked that Julio was available to begin with, and I was shocked that you were aware of my offers as they were happening.
Yeah, I was aware of all the big deals that went down on trade deadline day. The Goldschmidt deal is the only one that I didn't have some sort of heads up on. I had known about like all of these recent big deals that had gone down, including the 3-team trade, like at least a few hours before they happened.
Yeah, I don't know how that happened. You should just quit the league and become the newsbreaker, honestly.
Well, then I couldn't win 12-0. What would I do without that? Yeah. No, it has been great getting to know some of these trades before they happen. But yeah, I did catch wind of your offer. Do you want to reveal that offer on the air?
Yeah, so basically it was James Wood and Junior Caminero were both in the offer. It would have been, I initially even offered Ricky Tiedemann. They're like, yeah, we don't actually need 3 guys. We just want it to be 2. And I was excited. I would have pressed send very quickly on that deal, even though they were my 2 top prospects. And eventually, as is what happened with every Alex deal, eventually he says, actually, this guy's not on the table after all. Which sucked. I shouldn't have been as surprised as I was. But yeah, Julio did not move. I tried to see if I could get Gavin Williams after. That didn't happen either. But yeah, basically, I offered a couple of top prospects for Julio. Would have been a fun deal.
Yeah, I think that would have been a terrible deal for Alex and Zach, and I told them as such. So I am glad that did not happen.
I have no idea how they heard about that or how you heard about that offer, but yeah.
Well, I heard about it from them. Like,
yeah.
Where else would I have heard about it about? If it didn't come from you, probably the other team that was talking that deal. Yeah, it's the problem too is it's like it's a two-tier process, right? You have to get Alex's approval, but then he has to go back to Zach as well. So sometimes one of them likes to trade, but the other doesn't. But it's just how it goes sometimes. I mean, the beauty is, the season is only, or I hate this part, but I mean, we only have 6 more weeks until we can make trades again. So, and the season's over. So, I'm sure some of these trades that didn't happen, can be picked up around then. But any other big trades or that or little tidbits that you heard that we haven't discussed yet?
Yeah, so I came very close to acquiring Alex Bregman, and then Yuki just kind of kept upping the offer. I've been nearing Bregman deal for a little while, but it just never happened. He'd always start by saying, "Yeah, I want one of your top prospects, or one of Wood or Caminero," and I'd say, "Okay, I'll give you one of them," and then maybe like Alec Bohm or something. He'd think about it and say, "Actually, I need both Wood and Caminero," and I would say, "No chance." And this happened like 3 times, and nothing ever came of it.
Yeah, I mean, I like Bregman, but I don't think he's worth 2 of those prospects, and you could argue he might not be worth one of them.
Yeah, I could definitely argue that. And in fact, it would be in my best interest to argue that.
No,
Um,
absolutely. Um,
any others that you heard of though? That's basically it for ones that I was involved in. I know I was a little bit trying to trade for Lamont Wade Jr. for the last couple months. That never happened. Um, yeah, nothing real serious on my end.
yeah, I had thought about making a couple offers for some of those guys that Daniel and Matt had, but just didn't have some of the roster space. Like I thought Wade and Cobb were kind of interesting pieces. Breaking news while we're on the podcast, Ozzy Albies left the game early, so I guess you can never have too many second basemen.
Guess not. Yeah, you should have traded for Ryan McMahon. Also,
No, I refuse to roster Ryan McMahon.
he's fine.
If you say so.
Okay, but those were the trades that did not happen and the trades that did happen. Why don't we talk about the matchups that did happen in week 18? Not a lot of surprises this week. Again, another week of near surprises. But really the biggest storyline, we teased it in the open, was just how dominant your team was in your second straight 12-0 win.
Yeah, I mean, you could kind of tell from the beginning of the week when I opened up Monday with 22 RBIs that it was going to be a special week. And it did prove to be that. So it looks like I'm going to finish with 69 runs. It's currently the top of the ninth at a Sunday night game. So we'll update you if anything changes. But I finished with 69 runs, which breaks my record and is too short of the all-time record. I'm a little bummed. If I had like a normal offensive day today, I think I would have broken that record, but I kind of had a bad offensive day. And 20 doubles, very solid number there. 18 home runs, which was 4 short of my all-time record. There was a brief chance where I thought I'd be able to get there. I had 16 after the first 4 days, but kind of lost steam towards the end of the week. I had 82 RBIs. That 82 RBIs is 18 more than my previous high, which I set against you earlier this year. And it is 8 more than the previous all-time high for any team. That was EBO in 2019, had 74 RBIs. So I shattered that record. I had 14 steals, which was 2 less than the all-time record and 1 less than my personal all-time record. A little disappointed with the OBP. So I was riding a 424 OBP going into today. A bad day dropped it to 403, but that still makes it one of the it makes it the 13th ever 400 plus OBP week. And it actually, Cam, we're going to have to go and check, and I'll pull it up quickly. My previous high was also a 403, but it was a 403.6. And I don't know if this is Oh, it is a 402.9. So I did not set my OBP record. I came just short of that, but it is the 13th ever 400 OBP week. On the pitching side, I Andrew had a very good pitching week, as did I. I basically just kind of one upped him everywhere. I had one more strikeout, one more quality start, one more save, one more hold, 0.02 better in whip and 0.26 better in ERA. And that was enough for me to earn my second consecutive 12-0 victory. That is the second time in league history that a team has won 12-0 in back-to-back weeks, believe it or not. And that was Erik back in 2018. He beat Panic at the first game. So he beat Kyle, and then he beat I think CC was I don't know who that was, but
I don't know. It was CC North Korea?
that was my first stop. But you would think they'd say like NC or something along those lines. I'll double or I don't even know if we have the 2018
We do. We don't have player stats, but we have like the final scores and the
Oh, got it. Okay.
I'll talk about this matchup while you look that up.
Yeah.
It was a 12-0. It really easily could have been a 6-6. Not a whole lot would have had to change. But in the end, you were just insane this week. I have no interest in playing you anytime soon. It just looks like an absolutely miserable time to be your opponent right now. And your team killed it. You had a great week from Pete Alonso, who drove in 10 runs, and Mookie Betts drove in 9. It was really spread out across the board. Altuve scored 9 times with a 613 on base percentage.
Albies driven 13.
Yeah, I think as much as it pains me to say it, I think Albies is your matchup MVP just because of the 13 RBI with a 400 on base and 3 steals. He didn't quite have that 613 OBP that Altuve had, but it was leading your team in RBIs this week. Pitching wise though, Julio Urias had a week that could have won matchup MVP most weeks with those 2 quality starts. He really needed those because even after those, his ERA is still nearly 4.4. Looking at Andrew's team, yeah, he played fine. He would have tied me. His best hitter was probably Tommy Edman, and Edman had a great week. And then he had a really fantastic pitching week from Pablo Lopez too, and Tanner Bybee. Both of them. Andrew pitched really well, but 12-0. Yeah, once again.
Yeah, I mean, I think I came in today like 9-3, and I remember looking at the like Statcast or the fantasy cast before, and I was like, all these things that need to happen. I'm like, I was down like 20 strikeouts. It's like it's not going to happen, and then it somehow happened. So, very proud of this week. I thought I couldn't get better than last week's 12-0 win, and then it actually got better. So, that being said, it is toxic week next week, so you never know how things go.
I don't think it's going to be any amount of toxic. This is just going to be miserable.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think you're probably right. We're in very much in opposite directions here. And we'll talk about that in a bit. But actually, anything else with my matchup you'd like to discuss, or do we want to head to your matchup?
No, let's head to mine. I've won 4 out of 5, and the one I didn't win was a tie against the current first place team. So there's some positives. I now have more wins than I did last year, and there's still 3 weeks to go. But my team is just limping right now. I have way more injuries than any team should be allowed to have. It's just, everything I touch gets hurt. It's just really a rough time out here. I was up 9-1 to 2 last night, and I kind of didn't look at all today. And then suddenly you messaged me that you think I'm going to tie. And that was brand new news to me because I was expecting this matchup to have been over all week. But that's kind of been the story. Like in my matchup against Yuki, and then my matchup my matchup against Alex and Zach a couple weeks ago. It's really felt like everything's gone wrong for me on Sundays, and I just kind of barely pulled it out at the end. So I'm just not having a great time out here. I hit fine. I pitched fine. I pitched a lot better until I kind of blew up on Sunday. And my batting numbers looked a lot better until I sucked on Sunday too. Yeah, Sundays just are rough for me. Yeah, Clay Holmes kind of got shellacked, and so did Erod. But still a lot of positives. For starters, Gregory Santos got a save and pitched 3 strong innings. And then hitting wise, I got a really good week from Wilson Contreras again. And Cal Raleigh. I've been still doing the 2 catcher thing, and they're both hitting a lot of homers. I'm not getting anyone back anytime soon. I'd love it if someone came back so I don't have 13 injured guys for my first round playoff game against either Andrew or Ruthvik. Because that'll be ugly, I think. Matchup MVP, though, is Sonny Gray, who pitched 2 quality starts and struck out 17. He was fantastic. I also got 1 good start from Erod, 1 bad start. Not a lot of 2-start guys for me, so I'm glad I got some of those guys lined up. And then a shout out to Aaron Judge, who's not playing every day, but when he is, he's hitting like Aaron Judge. But it just really feels like I'm surviving right now, but I'm going to get smacked very soon, and it's probably this coming week.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if I'm looking at your team right now, just the injuries, like this looks like a one and done team. This doesn't look like a championship team right now.
And I've got enough guys playing well that I could make it interesting, but it's just now that Lindor is down, it's like
right. He lost Donovan for the year. India had a setback. I mean, Bryant, Kalanick, Neto don't look like they're coming back anytime soon. Ditto with Rendon. Like India, I think I already mentioned India setback. Like Maley's out for the year. I don't really think you're getting much of anything from Bueller this year. Like Rizzo is going to ramp up baseball activities, but who knows? And I mean, you could still have other players get hurt over this time. I mean, Judge's toe is still messed up. Like, even if he is healthy, like that could be affecting him down the stretch. Like, I mean, my God, your whole team is just one giant injured list.
Yeah, no, it's just not fun. I am not having a fun time, and not even in like a way that like, oh, it's just a game, we're having fun, but this is not great. No, I am not having fun. Like, full stop. No tinge of irony there. I am not having fun this season. Yeah.
All of that being said, you're still a half game out of a bye. Like you are still, if you were to beat me this week, you would be in possession of a bye. Like, it's not over. It's not looking great, but it's not over. You also have 3 weeks until the playoffs, and hey, if 3 or 4 of these guys can get healthy in between now and then, which I think is, seems somewhat realistic, like, maybe things start to look better. At the end of the day, the biggest contributors to your team that are on the IL, I mean, are Shane McClanahan and I'd say like Jonathan India and Anthony Rizzo. You're not getting McClanahan back, but if you get, let's say, India and Rizzo back, like, yeah, some of these other pieces are pieces you would like to have back, but like Anthony Rendon or Jared Kelenic or Chris Bryant are not going to be like, or Tyler Mahle are not going to be like the reasons you like win or lose a league. Like, there's hope. But right now, I think you're one and done if we put this team up against any of the other playoff teams right now.
So say I played Andrew this week, we would have tied 6-6 and I would have advanced on the tiebreaker of having the better record. Say I were to have played Ruthvik this week, I would have lost to him and been one and done. So yeah, we'll see how if I get these guys back, but it's not looking good.
Yeah, and I think even if you were to go and beat an Andrew or Ruthvik, I don't think you're getting past that next tier of teams with the way the roster is constructed right now.
Yeah, but I mean, SME's run is still a successful season, I guess.
Oh no, I think it is too. I'm not disputing that, but it just goes to show what you need to do uh
Yeah.
to get back in order. Now, let me ask you one last question. Did that affect your trade deadline strategy at all, knowing that you had 10 guys on the IL?
It meant that I couldn't really trade for a guy for some guys because I don't have a spot for them. Yeah, that definitely meant that. And I kind of, yeah, I tried to look at, I don't know, it meant that I was really kind of forced to go after top names only instead of like Hunter Renfro types to fill out my roster. And yeah, I got Ryan McMahon as a roster rounder out guy, but I couldn't get like a rounding out pitcher or anything like that because there's just nowhere to put them.
That makes sense. I mean, I do think you also did acquire a couple of those rounding out guys earlier. I mean, you did trade for Gregory Santos earlier this month. You traded for Erod, you traded for Charlie Morton, right? Those kind of wrap up your rotation a bit. You traded for Jeff McNeil. So I guess you did get some of those guys already. But yeah, I mean, I think you definitely could have been a little more aggressive at the trade deadline. Like you had the prospect and pick capital to trade for sure. And
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
was I was fully listening. I was like actively shopping James Wood and I couldn't get a bite.
yeah, I'm a little surprised about that. Um, maybe that's what the off season's for though, if you really want to move them.
Yeah. We'll
Yeah.
see. But here's something positive. The Drury are gonna win
Or
again.
they have one. The matchups are now over. The Sunday night game's over, so everything's locked in. Yeah, they won 7-5. They beat EBO in what I'd call a mild upset. Solid pitching week for the Drury. 3.59 ERA, 124 WHIP. They had one save and two holds, which was just enough to beat EVO in those categories. They had 0 saves and 1 hold. 4 quality starts, 41 Ks are okay, and then on the offensive side, they did just enough to kind of win there. 4 more runs in EVO, 1 more steal, 0.02 higher in OBP. And that was enough to pull out a solid 7-5 victory. That is their 4th win now on the season. And they have swept EBO. They beat EBO week 1, and they have now beat EBO again this week.
Yeah. So they now have the same record as Alex and Zach. They're tied for 11th. They both split their matchups. They both won 11 categories and lost 11 categories. So it would come down to Roto, who's got the best odds for the number 1 pick right now.
And I'm pretty sure it's Daniel and Matt.
Yeah, perhaps, but we don't know. We haven't looked in a while.
Yeah, we can go back and calculate it. It was Daniel and Matt by a pretty healthy margin the last time we did it. So as a reminder, though, it's not for the lottery odds. They are both going to have 20% odds. Where it is going to come down is if neither of those teams get one of those first 3 picks that we do through the lottery. Whichever team is like deemed to be in last place would then get the higher seed, so they would, or the higher pick, so they get like the 4th pick, and then the other team will get the 5th pick.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really it's not like hockey where there's or now in hockey, which we voted on, where each position has different odds. Here, the top 4 teams get 20% odds for that top pick. So it functionally doesn't make that much of a difference.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, pretty much. But I will say they've played pretty well lately. They're going to get their fourth win of the year. Their hitting was fine. They pitched pretty solidly. They had a good ERA, good whip. Alex and Zach, or no, EBO rather, did not play super well. They did hit a decent number of homers and doubles, but the pitching was kind of miserable. For the Drury, I'll say hitting wise, they had a good week from Jeremy Pena was solid. Henry Davis was okay. Not a good hitting week. Nolan Jones hit 2 homers, but had a 192 OBP. James Outman was maybe their best hitter. Pitching wise, though, I'll give matchup MVP to Dane Dunning, who had a 2.77 ERA, had a pair of quality starts, and struck out 18 guys. He helped them get that ERA down, helped them win WHIP, and helped them nearly win quality starts too.
Yeah, absolutely. No, Dane, 18 strikeouts in a week for Dane Dunning is insane. He really is not a big strikeout guy, but good for him. He's had a sneakily good season.
He has, yeah, he could be part of the next good Drury of our peers team for sure.
I think so too. He might be like their ace right now, but I think like moving as that team improves, if he's kind of like a back of the rotation starter for them, I think it'd be very nice.
Mhm.
But anything else you'd like to say about that matchup, or are we ready to move on to the next one?
No, let's move on. Not a lot of interesting matchups remaining. The closest one, Yuki gave Jake a scare, but Jake just played way too well to beat you, and ended up beating Yuki. Both teams hit really well. Both teams did not pitch very well, I'll say.
Yeah, they tied in quality starts and saves with 4 apiece. Yuki won and holds 2-1. Their ERAs and whips were pretty comparable. 446 for Jake, 463 for Yuki, and then a 128 whip for Jake, a 115 for Yuki. So they split there. Jake had more quantity, ended up with 78 strikeouts. He did have a bit of a better week offensively. 21 home runs is a lot, and 64 runs as well. Very solid number, 354 OBP, and was able to get the job done. Maybe not Jake's sexiest win, but he did a lot of what he needed to do to pick up the win. And that
And I think,
actually
yeah,
ties his all-time home runs record, which he set in 2021. And he also beat his runs record by 4, and just came short of tying his RBIs record. He would have needed one more to tie it.
yeah, no, he really hit the ball well this week. Even if he was let down by some pitchers, like Mackenzie Gore or Jesus Luzardo or Seth Lugo. But the hitting was good. Fantastic week from Kyle Tucker with 11 RBIs. The matchup MVP, with an honorable mention to who got an honorable mention? MJ Melendez. It goes to Matt Olson for the 4th time in the last 11 weeks. Matt Olson's just kind of on another planet right now. Whatever planet Freddie Freeman's on. He had 10 runs, 10 RBI, 4 homers, walked 9 times at a 538 OBP. 2 weeks in a row with a matchup MVP for him. Yeah, like I said, 4 times in very short memory. I'll give a shout out on Yuki's team to a few guys. Joey Meneses, Austin Riley had a fantastic week too. Yeah, as did Alex Bregman. Yeah, good hitting week for Yuki. Just couldn't compete with with one of the best hitting weeks Jake's ever had.
Yeah, absolutely. Just wasn't enough. This doesn't really surprise me. Jake's just kind of humming along, kind of just doing his thing, and that's now his uh 3rd straight win, and he's got 3 pretty easy matchups to end the season. He's got EBO, then Daniel and Matt, and then Anthony. And assuming he rolls through all 3 of those without any issues, he will be the 1 seed into playoffs. So Anything else you'd like to say here, or ready to move on to the next one?
No, let's move on. There are two matchups left. Do you have a preference which one we go to first?
Not at all. Your call.
Let's talk about Ruthvik. I guess he's um yeah, still kind of hanging on to that 6th seed. He beat Anthony 11-1.
No, he is not just hanging on to that 6th seed. Andrew's
Oh, is he?
loss has dropped him to the 6th seed, and Ruthvik is now the 5th seed.
Gotcha. Yeah, Ruthvik's now the 5 seed then. Um the hitting was he had a good on base, but the hitting was kind of mediocre outside of that. But he pitched damn well this week. With 91 Ks, he saved 7, 118 whip. Anthony pitched pretty well too with the 84 Ks and everything, but his hitting was just pretty lousy. Yeah, Ruthvik's the 5 seed. He'd play Erik in the first round now, if the season ended today.
Yeah, no, yeah, good for Ruthvik for being able to push himself back up there. That's now his third straight win. Notably for Erik too, so Andrew was only a half game behind him for that 4th seed. That now gives Erik a little bit of a buffer with Erik winning this week. We'll talk about him in a second. He is a game and a half up on both Andrew and Ruthvik with 3 games left in the season, and I believe he owns a tiebreaker over both of those teams. So I think it's safe to say that Erik is going to be a top 4 seed. I do wonder if he could potentially jump up to that 3 seed. But yeah, I think he's a lock for one of those top 4 seeds.
I think, yeah, probably. But yeah, Ruthvik, he didn't on the whole hit amazing, but he had a great week from both Keibert Ruiz and Brian Hayes. The latter had drove in 10 runs. Granted, he was playing the Reds this week, but he hit 3 homers. I'll give the matchup MVP though to Logan Webb, who had a fantastic Sunday start. 8 2/3 innings, couldn't quite finish out the complete game, but he only allowed 1 run. And then he got on Monday he got paddocked, but pitched really well, struck out 6 and 5 2/3 innings. Allowed 2 runs all week, but made 2 fantastic starts. Yeah, great week for him.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It was a shame he actually was about to pitch a complete game shutout, gave up a double. They took him out of the game for Camilo Doval, and then Doval ended up giving up a hit to the next batter and broke the shutout, and they had to go into extras. But yeah, great game for Webb.
Absolutely. Final matchup though, Erik had a pretty standard 11-1 win over Alex and Zach. Yeah, Erik was fine hitting, not amazing, but I'd say an above average hitting week. But he really shone pitching wise with that 2.26 ERA, the sub-1 WHIP. He pitched fantastically. Alex pitched really well too. His ERA was in record-breaking territory, I believe, like even Thursday or Friday morning.
Yeah, he had like a 0.29 ERA like at one point on Thursday.
Yeah, so that was a really, insanely good, near record-setting week. However, hitting wise, he also had a near record-setting bad week because that 2.53 on base percentage is the fourth worst single week on base percentage we've ever seen. Only 23 runs, 7 homers, 24 RBI, just a miserable time for them. And it was an 11-1 loss.
Yeah, just not as weak. Shout out to Erik for breaking his single week stolen base record. He had 14 steals this week. His previous high was 13, which he had 3 separate times before this. So yet another individual record broken this week. It's been a big week for records being broken.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Erik, uh, no real individual standout performers. He scored 49 runs, but no one scored more than five, and uh only one person scored more than four. So just everyone's contributing just kind of averagely. And then he also had five guys with exactly one quality start, no one with more. I am struggling to find a matchup MVP uh here among these names. Tanner Scott struck out of the bullpen, struck out more guys than any of Erik's starting pitchers. 7 Ks in 3 innings. I don't think I want to give it to him though.
Not the
Um,
9 shutout innings by George Kirby.
um, oh yeah, I missed those. That's a pretty good start.
They lost that game too. That's the funny part. He pitched 9 shutout innings, and then they lost the game in the 10th.
Yeah, I'll give it to Kirby. Yeah, those 9 shutout innings were really good. I'll give an honorable mention to Zach Geloff though, who hit 3 homers and 3 doubles, with a 400 on base.
Yeah, I'm a little annoyed. Someone I've been in on forever. I cut him. I thought about picking him up right before or like right when he debuted. Erik swooped in, and he's been a nice fill in at second base. I mean, obviously Erik has Story now, as another short term kind of second base replacement. But Gallof's been hitting the ball pretty solidly for Erik since Erik got him. So good for him.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, yeah, let's move on to uh this upcoming week's matchups though. And let's do it in less than 8 minutes. Um,
Yeah.
really the matchup to watch. It has to be the one between the two of us. We'll see if you can get your third straight 12-0. All signs point to yes on that. Um, yeah, and it's just gonna be an ugly one. But if by some chance I win, then I got the bye again. So that'd be something.
Yeah, I would have beaten you 11-01 this week. If I somehow get another 12-0, it's not going to happen, but that would be absolutely insane. I did confirm, by the way, CC on the sheet was North Korea, so that was the second game that Erik had won in his back-to-back 12-0 victories in 2018, and hopefully I'm making it back-to-back-to-back. That would be absolutely insane, but I have no expectation that that's going to happen. I'm just hoping to pull out a W against you.
Yeah, and I'm hoping to look respectable and hoping to have some of my guys make recoveries from injuries before I play Erik.
Yeah, can I just say a tale of two matchups for us? I mean, when I played you the first time this season, I was coming off of back-to-back losses to Ruthvik and then Daniel and Matt, and like really needed to beat you and then Jake the next week just to be able to stay in a conversation for a bye. And now look how things have flipped. Like my team's been dominant as of late. Your team's been hurt. So um it's a message for all these playoff teams here, especially, we got 3 weeks until the playoffs. Things look one way right now. Things will look very different. And by the time the playoffs start or a couple weeks in the playoffs, I mean, you just never know.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I guess when I played you and Erik the first times, both of you were coming off of a really rough stretch, and both of you really kicked it into high gear when you played me. So now when I play you and Erik, you're both on hot stretches, so maybe you'll both falter. Maybe it's just kind of the circle of life.
Yeah, no, it would be very nice for you, but yeah, I don't have any expectation of that happening.
No, let's pick these matchups though. I imagine I'm still in front in the standings.
Yeah, like the week before, we picked similar matchups. Um, we both picked EBO to win, and we were wrong about that. You picked Anthony to Ruthvik. You picked Anthony and Ruthvik to tie. I picked Ruthvik to win. I was right about that. So I gained a half game up on you. And I'm not going to try and add these up right now because I'm a little bit behind on doing that. And the Zoom thing ends in 5 minutes. So let's see if we can make these picks in 5 minutes. And if anybody really cares as to the numbers, which I suspect none of you do, I could let you know off the air.
All right. I think you're going to beat me 12-0. I fully believe that. I think Ruthvik's going to beat the jury. That could be a little closer than we think, though. I think Andrew's going to beat Anthony. I think Eric's going to beat Conor. I think Jake's going to beat EBO. And I think Yuki will beat Alex. Yuki's been playing fine lately. And as much as this is like the one upset that could be reasonable, I'm not gonna pick the upset.
Got it. Okay. I will pick Ruthvik to beat Daniel and Matt as well. I will also pick Andrew to beat Anthony. I'll pick Erik to beat Conor. I'll pick Jake to beat EBO. I agree that Yuki and Alex could be an upset matchup. I just don't have enough confidence in Alex's roster right now to really pick it as an upset. And I'm also going to pick myself to win, and just because it would be fun, I'm also going to say that I'm going to win 12-0, even though I have no expectation that's going to happen.
Oh boy, so we both think you're going to 12-0 me.
I don't think it, but I'm having a lot of fun picking it, so why not? Just do it for the meme or whatever you want to call it. But yeah, I'll make that pick. Why not?
All right. But yeah, we'll play the games. We'll see how badly I lose to you by. We'll see how the standings look here at the end of week 19. Only 3 more weeks to go in the regular season. We got to find drama where we can find it.
Yeah, I'm really bummed. I mean, we know who the playoff teams are going to be, but I do think there is a real race for who gets the 3 seed between you and Erik. If one of you or if you specifically are not kind of making your way up to a bye. And then I also think this Ruthvik Andrew battle for the 5th seed is going to be really interesting to see how that plays out. And that's something we could preview a little bit next week, kind of once we have a better idea after some of these matchups, how it's going to go, and we can walk through some of the different scenarios there. But I think those are the last 2 kind of areas where, it's things are up for debate as to how they're going to play out. I think everything else is starting to settle itself in pretty nicely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
no, absolutely. But till then, hopefully we can all be healthy for these playoffs, because I know you agree that this isn't the way you wanted to face me.
Oh, no, it's not. And seeing how my team has gotten very healthy over the last 2 weeks, like, I understand the difference that it makes when, like, I getting Freed and Woodruff back. I know Cortez just landed back on the IL, but just getting those 2 back really stabilized my rotation this week. I had 7 quality starts. Like, I haven't been able to consistently count on having a high quality start number in a while. Like, so no, I mean, I totally get it. I wish you were at full strength. It's more fun to play you when you're at full strength.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
absolutely. And maybe that can happen in the finals.
Oh God, yeah, that'd be the ultimate toxic week.
All right. Until then, let's enjoy this untoxic week 19.
It's still gonna be toxic. All right. We'll see you on the other side.
I want you to love me like you hate me sometimes. I want it to hit me like your favorite punchline. It's not toxic the way you feel. It's not perfect. We hurt. No matter what, baby, I back it up, baby. Yeah, just so you know it's real. perfect with you, perfect don't even exist.
This podcast is good.